Yeah, the Hetzer. Germany's cutest, deadly hedgehog. Where did it come from? Where does it go? Where do you come from? Jagdpanzer 38 Tschechien Hetzer. All this and more in the first episode of War from the Classics. Hetzer is the name used to trigger wearables all across the internet. Given that there is no actual record of it being the official nickname of the vehicle, you can even trigger people further by saying it's just a Panzerkampfwagen 38T with a casemate 75mm gun on it. As you will be quick to point out that the chassis is actually slightly different, and in fact they only share the tooling and a couple of road wheels for cost reduction. The Hedgehog is actually quite a late war tank, being introduced in April 1944. Yeah, I bet you weren't expecting that. This tank destroyer is in fact one of the few examples of Germany actually recognizing their economic situation and attempting to produce something effective yet cheap. In game, the Hedgehog comes in at a battle rating of 4.7 and rank 3 in the German armored tank destroyer line, right after the Sturmgeschütz 3G, although you don't need to unlock that one to research it. Alright, let's talk about my religion, the holy trinity of tank warfare. Sonic's armor consists of sloped 60mm plates, giving you between 110 to 130mm of effective thickness on the upper plate and between 85 to 90mm on the lower plate. This is actually quite respectable for its battle rating, giving you armor roughly on par with the KV-1 series, but on a much smaller tank. In fact, you're going to have a great time bouncing a lot of shots in the down tier, especially against the Americans and the Brits with their lower caliber AP shells. Things do change in an up tier though. You can't really rely on your armor against Soviet 85mm cannons anymore, let alone anything of an even bigger caliber. A similar theme applies to the firepower. Sennheiser comes equipped with a 7,5 cm Panzerabwehrkanone 39 L48, also known as the 75mm Pak 39 in non-Wehraboo. This cannon is functionally the same as the one found on the 3.3 Panzer IV F2. Now, this cannon is infamous for being a lol-penning machine at the F2's battle rating, and it does work wonders in a down tier for the Hetzer, but as with the armor, it simply doesn't quite cut it in an up tier anymore. You're going to struggle with the later KV-1s with 100mm of frontal armor, Sherman Jumbos, late Churchills, Comets and the Centurion Mark I. So what about the mobility? You'd think that for something based on a light tank, the Hetzer would just zip around the battlefield and easily reach ambush positions, but that isn't quite the case. With its meager 160 horsepower engine and just about a 10 horsepower per ton ratio, you struggle to get anywhere quickly. Add to that the rather narrow tracks and you'll be even slower off-road. Now, don't get me wrong, in comparison to many of the other German tanks, the Hetzer is quite quick, but when you compare it to other nations it really isn't. Just to put things into perspective, I went into the Polygon tank test map and timed myself completing the course. The Hetzer took a whole 7 minutes and 12 seconds to do so, keep this number in mind. So I went and took something that surely couldn't be quicker, something like a heavy tank. So I took the KV-1 ZIS 5. Not even the lighter and faster KV-1S, but the proper big heavy brute. And to my surprise, the KV completed the exact same course in 6 minutes and 20 seconds. That's almost a whole minute faster than the Hetzer. Now, whilst the Hetzer does have the top speed advantage, it simply can't really reach it. The engine is just too weak. And it almost comes to a standstill every time you try to turn. Now imagine the kind of circles an M18 will run around you. So we've got a very stealthy but rather slow tank destroyer with a mediocre gun and decent armor. What's the playstyle like? Well, that depends on what the battle rating of your match is. It took a while to get used to the Hetzer, but I think I've nailed down two completely different playstyles that work pretty well under the right conditions. First, the sniper. The optics have an extreme level of zoom, and with enough practice can be quite effective at picking off targets at longer ranges. Your small profile also makes you very hard to spot, especially if you're sitting in a bush. And even if they do spot you, your armor can withstand quite a range of guns firing back at you. However, this is only really effective in the down tier, where you can actually reliably pen targets with your gun. In a 3.7 match, you can easily pick off anything that crosses your sights, carrying your team to the win by simply running the enemy out of tanks or preventing them from reaching objectives. In an up tier, however, your gun isn't good enough to quickly dispatch of the hordes of the KV-1s and the Sherman Jumbos you'll face. And you'll often spend all game doing very little to no effect, letting your team down and losing a lot of matches. Instead, I found a second tactic to be quite effective. In a 5.7 match, it's not a bad idea to get up close and personal. Now, this does require quite a bit of experience, both of the map and of the weak spots of common enemy tanks. You don't really want to be facing enemy heavies from the front either, especially not the jumbos. As I mentioned before, the Russian 85mm guns can also easily nuke you. Your one big advantage, however, is your size. You're tiny! You can slither through city maps unseen, use rubble as cover, sneak up from the sides and disappear again into the nearest tight alley or bush, all the whilst being a massive team player by harassing the enemy heavies and decapping unguarded flags. You do have to be careful not to run head first into the enemy, but catching them off guard is a great way to go on kill streaks and carry your team. And in fact, get used to it, because up tiers is what you will have to deal with most of the time. The Hetzer sits at a very awkward battle rating, where it can't be down tiered with the masses of Panzer IV F2 players. 3.7 to 4.7 just isn't a very common bracket. Most matches will be either 3.3 to 4.3 or 4.7 to 5.7. The Hetzer just happens to be on the bottom end of a popular bracket and suffers accordingly. This isn't to say that it's a bad tank, it really isn't. You just need quite a bit of knowledge and practice to do consistently well in the many up tiers you'll be fighting in. So, to conclude the tale of the little Hetzer that could. You've got yourself a capable but difficult to play little tank destroyer with an average balance of armor, mobility and firepower. In the right hands it can definitely perform very well, but it isn't a very noob friendly machine. Just keep in mind to check what battle rating you're fighting in at the start of each match and adjust your playstyle accordingly. If you're in a down tier, by all means adopt a sniper role and rain hell from far range on enemy tanks trying to go for the caps. If you're in an up tier, try using your stealth to get up close, flank and ambush. In either case, the more you can avoid being seen, the better. And this concludes the first episode of War Thunder Classics. Really, this is just fancy reviews of some of the older and less covered vehicles of the game. Honestly, I really just wanted to get away from the mess that is top tier, and the most fun you can have in War Thunder is around tiers 2 to 4, so it seemed like a perfect fit to start this series. I'm not quite sure which tank I'll take a look at next, but if you've got some suggestions, do let me know in the comments down below. Any nation will do, I've pretty much got everything but the very last tiers fully unlocked on all. Ah yes, I suppose you're wondering where I've been, and mainly where Panzermeters is. Well, you're in luck, check the channel. I will have uploaded a vlog explaining things and another episode of the Weep game at the same time. Multiple videos in a day, I know right? But in any case, hopefully you have enjoyed this video. As always lads, my name is MikeGoesBoom, and thank you for watching.
You can lift your head up to the sky, take a deeper breath and give it time. You can walk the path among the lines with your shattered frame of mind. Or instead you could always stay. We can wait right here and play until somehow you can find